them.
So the most evil characters in the Rings of Power are actually the Harfoots.
Do you expect me to do about it?
What you ought to have done at the camp. Take their wheels and leave them.
Is everything... Are you all good?
We have each other. We're safe. That is how we survive.
So the core thing that I want to take a look at that's a little bit of a new spin, and I'm sure it's been addressed before, but I wanted to get into it as we get ready to go into the new season of Rings of Power, are basically two items. The first item is that the Harfoots are not modeled, of course, after Tolkien. The Harfoots are actually modeled after the Irish travelers.
Watch yourself, Paddy. Elder Paddy.
So really what we saw were a lot of the stereotype. So for example, I saw some stuff that, for example, some of the young men in the Irish traveling community, that they engage in quote unquote grabbing, which some people will say is SA, and it looks like it could be SA.
Beat them for the kiss. You gotta work for a kiss, man. You gotta bend its arm. You gotta punch it.
But I'm not really going to get deep into that. I'm not really going to get deep too much into Irish traveling culture. But really, fundamentally, all the worst aspects of Irish traveling culture that are mentioned in the media that most people can easily find for themselves are what they based the Harfoots on. Even though that's really a far cry from our understanding what the hobbits are, which would be their descendants. So why would, for example, their descendants be better entities or better humanoids than their ancestors? Does that really make sense?
Harfoots are free from the worries of the wide world. Nobody goes off trail and nobody walks alone.
What were the hobbits? From Tolkien's own words, letter 131 from Letters of J.R.R. Tolkien. The hobbits are, of course, really meant to be a branch of the specifically human race, not elves or dwarves. Hence, the two kinds can dwell together, as at Bree, and are called just the big folk and little folk. They are entirely without non-human powers, but are represented as being more in touch with nature, the soil, and other living things, plants and animals, and abnormally for humans, free from ambition or greed of wealth.
Nobody goes off trail. That's right. Nobody goes off trail.
Because to me, it really doesn't make sense. It presupposes that potentially Tolkien was doing something he wasn't doing, and Tolkien didn't do it. So obviously, the creators of the Rings of Power, where did they get that from? And why would they, for example, think that using Irish traveling subculture, especially like the worst aspects of it, would be like something that would really get the audiences on? So my premise was that the Harfoots are worse than Sauron. And the Harfoots in the Rings of Power are worse than Sauron. Their behavior is sociopathic, at times even borderline psychopathic. Many of them really seem to be like malignant narcissists, sort of like consumed with themselves. And if we get really deep, their behavior is probably even worse than Galadriel's behavior. And that's as a unit. Like if you listen to the song that they sing, they talk about, or they pride themselves on having left all these different people. We will wait for you. We couldn't wait for you in life. Why couldn't you wait for them in life?
Here, now, we welcome to our circle Miles Brightapple.
We wait for you.
Chance Proudfellow.
We wait.
Ovo Baljabook. Yarrow Proudfellow. Strap. Dewis. Linseed Proudfellow. Daffodil Burrows. We all loved him, but he wasn't Egypt.
Even like their approach to the stranger character slash Gandalf, not really Gandalf. I mean, their approach to him is not really an approach that we would expect from the Hobbits' ancestor. It just doesn't really make any sense. Rings of Power presents to us a Sauron that is two-dimensional or three-dimensional, a Sauron who wants to be redeemed. But most of the Harfoot characters that we have, they don't really change. Their behavior doesn't change at all. And once again, I mean most of the village itself. Most of the village is sort of like imbibed, or rather they're just caught up in themselves, which is very, very self-centered. And many of them just have these really deep-rooted narcissistic traits. And these are like fundamentally narcissistic criminal traits in the show.
It has kept us alive 1,000 years.
Our laws are clear. Any Harfoot that breaks them is to be decaravaned.
If we compare them really to the orcs in season 1, the behavior of the Harfoots is worse than the behavior of the orcs, which is just like really like crazy, because the orcs are really made to be evil, but the Harfoots are exhibiting behavior that is kind of like similar to the orcs or just as bad. I mean, that's terrible. So the most evil characters in the Rings of Power are actually the Harfoots. So if you like what you heard, like, subscribe, leave us a comment. I'm working on maybe, I guess at this point, probably part 3. And then I got some other stuff that I'm working on. And I hope you'll enjoy it. And I'm out.
And the three of us, and we're like, is everything, are you all good?
We stay true to each other with our hearts even bigger than our feet.
Take their wheels and leave them.